Council meeting of August 3rd, 2022 to order. Join me in the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Sure. Mayor Allison? Are you on the line?
Here.
Okay. Tom Baylor?
Here.
Kathy Sherman?
Here.
Jeff Guard?
Yes.
Melina Meyer?
Here.
Ann Schaefer?
Here.
Kristen Carpenter?
Here.
And Ken Jones.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Hey, Council, the agenda is before you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and approved. Is there any other comments, questions about the agenda? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none.
Aye.
Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Conflicts of interest or ex parte communications by anybody?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes.
I have a conflict of interest with item number 21, so I'll recuse myself from that discussion when it comes up.
Okay, duly noted. Anybody else? Okay, I will just, I don't think it's a conflict, but I do have a property that will be affected by the White Shed corridor. There's no financial gain, it doesn't mean anything, but just for public notice, I do have a piece of property there.
I feel that is a conflict. I
Okay,
have the property right next to you.
okay, well, thank you. All right. I'll put it to council there. If anybody think that's a conflict owning property on that corridor?
I think the definition of conflict of interest is if you stand to gain financially and.
Financially.
Yeah, I would agree. All right,
Excuse me,
we're gonna,
but I would lose money and he would not. So you have to factor that in, please.
okay, well, and you'll have time for your audience comments.
Okay?
Okay, all right. With that, we have some guest speakers. We have the Department of Transportation, the report on Whitehead Road. So who's gonna take over?
Yeah. Hello,
Want to
everybody.
introduce yourself for everybody?
My
and on the
name's
phone?
Russell Johnson, RUSSELL, I work for the Alaska Highway Department of Transportation and Public Facilities in Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm a highway design manager. And the Cordova Whiteshed Pedestrian Project is one of the projects I'm currently managing. I'll just kind of jump into my presentation. Next slide, please.
Could you move that mic just a little closer to you?
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so Whiteshed Road and pedestrian improvements. The scope of this project is to accommodate pedestrians along Whiteshed Road between the Copper River Highway and the Orca Inlet Drive intersections. The purpose, why are we doing this project, is to improve safety by providing accommodations for non-motorized traffic along this 0.8 mile corridor. Why is the project needed? And it's needed because the road's narrow, there's no dedicated shoulders, and the lack of shoulders causes non-motorist users to share the 11-foot vehicle travel lanes or truck off the paved roadway. And we've been out there all day today, and I'm kind of amazed. I think I've been here in the wintertime, and I haven't seen that much traffic, the volume of traffic or the volume of non-motorized traffic. I probably saw, and I wasn't out there all day, I probably saw 4 people running. I saw people walking along the corridor. I saw multiple bicycles. So I'm really kind of didn't realize how much traffic, along with the vehicle traffic along this road. And we walked the corridor, and we're on the side of the road watching vehicles go by us at 35 miles an hour, some of them big. Next slide. Project corridor, like I said, this is graphic shows a project corridor. We're starting at the Copper River Highway intersection, and we're going to head, I guess you'd say, the southwest direction, and we end at the Orca Inlet intersection. Next slide. All right, a little background. How was this project created? And this project is not a DOT started project. So the City of Cordova and the Native Village of Eac sponsored and submitted a nomination package to the state of Alaska supporting the design and construction of this project. And it goes through a STIP, a nomination project process. And this project did get its project start through the support, I guess, and the champion of City of Cordova and Native Village of Eac. So us as DOT, we are here to design and construct the project for you fellas here in Cordova. Existing corridor, it's the only road in and out of the area. It's got a narrow right-of-way. The road's not centered on the right-of-way. It's got high seasonal bicycle and pedestrian use. There's multiple utilities exist between the road surface. We got the full meal deal. We got water, sewer, electric, telephone, cable TV, communication cable. I think the only thing we're missing is probably gas lines. There's no gas. Other than that, we got everything. So we're affecting a little bit of everything, but later in the slide, I got Gary Jenkins here, and he's the utility designer, and he can discuss that in further detail. Drainage improvements are needed. Anybody that lives in Cordova and has driven that corridor when it's wet knows that there is drainage issues in this area. There's some culverts that are undersized. There's some are failing. The ditches need to be regraded. They do fill up with grit and rock, and our project will address drainage problems and drainage issues. We will improve the drainage. All right, so I heard this is a CMGC project. So what does that mean? So CMGC is a construction manager general contractor, CMGC. It's a project or a process where you hire the construction contractor, who in this case is Granite Construction Company, who's here with us tonight, during the development of the design, and they help us with the design. So they're part of the design team. So it's a partnering relationship, and they can help us figure out, like, how are we going to build this thing? How are we going to keep traffic open during construction? They help us develop realistic cost estimates, like how much is this going to cost? Where are we going to get our material from? What are the time delays to get material here? So it's really a benefit having these guys be part of our team and help us with the design. They give us also critique our design and help us simplify and reduce risk and reduce costs is the goal. Next slide. What's our budget? So the construction budget limit has been set at $9 million for this project. We're sticking to that number, and you've all heard in the news how costs have skyrocketed since COVID hit, and this project is right in there with that too. So we have seen escalated costs for construction contracts in Northern Region, in our Fairbanks construction DOT projects, but we're setting the budget at $9 million, and that's our target, and we don't expect to go over that. Challenges, what's the challenges for this project? Like I said earlier, the right-of-way is really narrow, combined with exceptionally steep rock topography just beyond the paved road surface. And this limits the physical room to fit new pedestrian accommodations. We're widening the roads, so we only have so much room. So the narrow topography and the narrow right-of-way is really a challenge for this project. There's no alternate access routes to detour traffic around construction activity. So keeping this road open, at least to one-lane traffic, is a must for not only the people that live there, but for emergency services. And then how to construct the final design. How are we going to get out there? How are we going to get cranes and move dirt and blast and excavate this mountainside where it's needed? Proposed project improvements. We're going to add a pedestrian bicycle path facility. It's basically a sidewalk, curb and gutter, like what you see in town here. We're going to improve clear zone. Clear zone's that area beyond the vehicle travel way where you don't have obstacles. So if you do have an errant vehicle, you have time to correct. The theory is you have time to correct your errant vehicle and get back onto the road before you start smashing into trees or the sides of the mountain here. As you can see, it's really close to the road. And also, we're going to improve drainage, like I mentioned earlier. Next slide. Okay, so this is a typical section. I'm going to have to show you two of them. This is like taking a slice of pie through the roadway, and if you can visualize that. In the middle, you'll see a CL. That's the center line of the road. And on each side, the left and the right of that CL line, we have 11-foot lanes. And then outside of the lanes, we call it a 1 foot. It says SH. That's a 1 foot shoulder. So the shoulder, the edge of your travel way is that white fog stripe that you see down the road. And then the area beyond that that's still paved or unpaved, it doesn't necessarily have to be paved. That's the shoulder. And then if we look, I'm going to look on the right-hand side of this typical section. It's showing a 2-foot curb and gutter and then an 8-foot sidewalk. So this typical section is going to be in the areas where we're not adjacent to the ocean and where we have room where you don't have such a high road embankment. And you'll notice underneath the sidewalk, it looks like a little rectangle with some circles in it, and that's a duct bank. And what a duct bank is an area where you put your utilities, relocated utilities. So on this project, we're proposing to put a duct bank underneath the sidewalk for communication, electrical lines, GCI cable TV, telephone, and that's it. So then let's look on the left-hand side. Yeah, let's go back. They're kind of the same. So on the left-hand side is the mountain side of the road. The right-hand side's the ocean. Left-hand side's the mountain. And you can see we're gonna put in a ditch. We got an embankment that's going to slope down to a 4-foot wide ditch, and then we're going to do a cut back slope. We're going to cut back into the road into the mountainside at a 0.75. We call it a 3/4 to 1 back slope. And that in these rock areas, that will have to be done with drilling and blasting. And there will be temporary closures of the road during the blast, and they're not going to be for long duration. But when they do blast, there'll be fragments of rock on the roadway that'll have to be cleared before we can open it back up to traffic. Next slide. So this is a copy of the typical we just saw. We call this typical 2. It's pretty much a mirror copy of what you just saw, except one thing to notice is on the right-hand side, the sidewalk. You'll see the sidewalk now. On the previous slide, it was 8 foot wide, but where the high fill areas, we're trying to neck down the footprint of the road, and we're going with the 6-foot sidewalk. But because the road embankment is so steep on the ocean side, you'll see that 2 to 1 on the right side. That means the horizontal slope is 2 horizontal to 1 vertical, which is pretty steep. So we don't want little kids riding their bikes or pedestrians and they go off the side of the road embankment and they end up in the ocean. So in these steeper embankment areas, we're putting up a pedestrian handrail as a safety rail for mostly for kids and bicyclists, so they don't end up in the ocean. Other than that, it's the same typical you just looked at. Right, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Gary Jenkins. Gary, say hi and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Russ. My name is Gary Jenkins. I work for Dowell, and we're doing the utility relocation design in support of DOT's project. So that means we're looking at all the utilities that Russ mentioned, water and sewer, and power, and the different communication utilities that are going down the road. And for this project, the primary utility relocations are for Cordova Electric Cooperative and the Cordova Telephone Cooperative and GCI. The water and sewer, there won't be any actual physical pipes or manholes that have to be moved, just some adjustments of the valve boxes and manhole lids and those kinds of things as the road moves around and up and down slightly with the new alignment. So the main thing to point out here on the utility relocations is that services will be maintained, and utilities are committed to that, and working with property owners, doing after-hour cutovers or doing it at times when the least impact to property owners would occur, and they are committed to giving advance notice of those outages. So that's the big picture on utility relocations. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see I can give a brief description Maybe if you go back 2 slides real quickly to one of those typical sections, there we go. So as Russ mentioned, the duct bank that's shown on the right side underneath the sidewalk, what that consists of is all those 3 utilities, power, Cordova telephone, and GCI, all being routed on the right-hand side under the sidewalk. That's going to be the new main line. Currently, all those utilities are primarily on the left side, the mountain side of the road. And so they're going to be in the way of the new ditching and various things like that. So we're just moving everything cleanly to the right-hand side under the sidewalk, get it out of the traveled way of the road, and then make crossings back to existing services or transformers and such across as we go down the corridor. So if you could pop forward a couple slides, we'll take a look at that. So this is maybe a little bit difficult. You're looking at a plan view, looking down on the roadway. The bottom side of the picture here is your sidewalk. If you can make that out, it's got the little triangles, hatch pattern in there. The top of your picture would be the mountainside. And so the intent here is to show that you can see 3 different colors of lines, red, orange, and green, that are traveling under the sidewalk. And then at locations where we need to cross, there will be vaults or pedestals. You've seen those along the corridor now. As you drive it, you see transformers and various things. And so all the conduit will go into those new pedestals or vaults, and then there will be a crossing across the road to existing services. So that's how service will be in the future. Again, the outages are planned to be very minimal. It'll be in coordination with property owners so that you know when it's going to happen, and preferably at a time that's not a problem for the property owner. So I think that's essentially it. I think the next slide we're going to get into right of way. So
If we could go back 1 slide, if we could. I just want to add, Gary's talking about cutovers. What's a cutover? So a cutover is when you're cutting over from your existing services, and Gary said services. What's a service? So we call them secondary services. So think of a distribution power line. So there's a main power line that runs up and down the road, and then there's a service or a wire that goes from a transformer to your house. So that is a secondary electrical service. So them services are going to remain active. The coordination or the scheduling is we'll build this new duct bank first. We'll pull all the wires, get everything ready to go, and then we'll cut over your existing secondary service and tie it into the new service. And that's what Gary's saying. To minimize outages, we're going to keep the existing stuff active as long as we can, build the new stuff, and then we'll cut over or switch your service, secondary service, to the new service and minimize disruptions to you guys. Hopefully that made sense.
And one would assume there'll be no cost to the customer to do that. It's all part of the
Correct.
project.
Correct, yep.
All right, so I can talk about right away. Could I just get the next slide, please? Thank you. So my name is Dan Peister. I'm DOT right-of-way agent in Fairbanks. And so the history of this right-of-way starts at least as early as 1935, which is when the first conveyances to the public from the U.S. Forest Service occurred. So the road has been in some form of use since as early as 1935. Most of the right-of-way is acquired by the public through public dedication via plats. The one thing that's important to note is that I don't know if it's right to say most of the existing road, but at least major portions of it are not centered within that right-of-way. So they could potentially be pushed all the way to one side or the other. And one of the instances that people might be most interested about is the first few hundred feet of the road, which that situation it's our understanding that situation appeared to result in an error with a private subdivision. And that subdivision, what we think happened is that a surveyor went out to the center of the existing road, even though it's not centered within the right-of-way, and measured a 30-foot amount off of that center line of the road, which was an incorrect location to start that. And so that ends up creating a little bit of a gap, or not a gap, but a disputed zone where a private parcel was platted on top of public right-of-way. So that's part of this project. That's one of we came out in 2019 and spoke to some folks about that then, and I'm happy. I have some stuff here in case anybody wants to talk about it again after here. But that's probably the most interesting part of the right-of-way. But the rest of it is mostly dedicated via public plat. So any acquisition, any new right-of-way that comes in, folks will likely receive an offer package from me at some point. We're currently working on the third-party appraisal contract. So that appraiser is getting spun up, and they'll start to reach out to folks who will be affected by this project shortly. There are a couple of different types of acquisitions that we would seek. There's either a fee acquisition, which would become full new right-of-way, an easement acquisition, which is usually for utility purposes. On the thing here, it shows TCEs and TCPs. So there's TCE is a temporary construction easement. And that's an interest that we purchase the interest. It's temporary for 1 or 2 years generally. And it automatically expires at the end of the construction contract or at that time frame that's specified, whichever comes first. And those are paid interest, and those temporarily temporarily let DOT occupy that space exclusively. A TCP is a temporary construction permit, which those are not paid interest. Those are considered for mutual benefit, and usually what those are for are we offer to match grade driveways. So if the road height is changing in any way, or there's any reason why the existing driveway would not match the constructed road, and creating a smooth grade would push us into private property, we'll ask for a temporary use of that property to regrade the driveway. Those are considered for mutual benefit, so those aren't paid interests, and those are way less formal and can be revoked by the property owner at any time. So if they don't like what's going on inside of that, they can revoke it at any time. And so the right-of-way process is beginning, like I said, with the appraisals getting started. Folks may start hearing from me by the end of this year, I think is roughly when we would expect that to occur. And so that's associated with all of on the maps back there with the green lines that show the new right-of-way. So those areas will be hearing from me, hopefully by the end of the year. I think that's about it for me.
Right. I always have to add something. So if we could go back one slide, so Dan, you did a great job, but I'm going to dummy it down a little bit.
Okay.
So like Dan was saying, that we've got some right-of-way issues out here. And Dan said the road was dedicated, the right-of-way was dedicated in 1935. They went out in 1936, the dozer, and they went out, and back in 1936, they probably weren't so astute to paying attention to making sure the road was in the road right-of-way, and they went out and dozed it, and they put the road in. Well, the road is not centered in the road right-of-way. The road right-of-way is nominally 30 feet each side of center line of the right-of-way. The road is not centered in the right-of-way. So then in the 70s, early 70s, 79, they started developing subdivisions or parcel plats out there. And we assume what happened was the surveyor got the title report and said, hey, the legal description is it's 30 feet each side of center line. And they're like, well, there's the center of the road, and I'm going to take my tape measure, and I measure in 30 feet, and I start pounding property corners. Well, the surveyor didn't realize that the road is not centered in the right-of-way. And that's where we get this wiggling and waggling, and we get these, you said it really elegantly, Dan, I don't know how you said it, we get these, the road right-of-way is now overlapping, or the parcel plats or the subdivisions are overlapping the road right-of-way. And that, we think that's what this happened. And of course, typically there's error and omissions insurance for these people, and then we go back and we point the finger at the surveyor and said, look what you did. But I believe all the people that developed these subdivisions are no longer alive. So there's nobody to point fingers at. So we got to figure this out, and it's not going to be fun or comfortable, and not everybody's going to agree. And we totally expect that. And I would be mad if it was I'd be like, what? I have my parcel plat and I have my title report, and you're telling me that it's wrong? And unfortunately, I'm kind of like, yeah. And I'd be mad. So I totally understand. We're not here to hurt people by any means. And like I said, if it was the role reversal, I'd be mad as a wet hen. So that's the road right away. And then, like Dan said, we're widening the road. We're adding a sidewalk, 8-foot wide, nominally foot sidewalk, and we're widening ditches to improve clear zone. We're improving sight distance. Part of the widening these ditches is, we call it sight distance. How far can we see down the road? And everybody knows that there's some sharp corners, and the mountainside is blocking your view around these corners, and it's farther beyond just Orca Inlet Road. So we're widening the ditches and we're flattening curves, and that's for safety. And it's the farther you can see down the road, the more time you have to see if there's something in the road that you need to stop before you hit it. So that's part of why we need to widen the road. We need to widen the road so we can see farther. We need to widen the ditches so they drain better, and we need to widen the road for this new sidewalk and curb and gutter. So that's the right-of-way acquisitions. So we're going to say, hey, we need this right-of-way from you. And unfortunately, it's the people that are negatively affected the most on these projects, these widening projects, are the people that are adjacent to the project corridor. You can't help it, And so I understand and feel for these people because they're the ones that are impacted the most. But we need to widen the road, and that's where Dan's team comes in with the acquisitions. When you see TCE or TCP, that just remember temporary. It's not permanent. We just need some room to build the project. And like we said, right-of-way process, the first thing we do as designers is we define what's the footprint. How much room do we need for this new facility improvements? Then we do appraisals, and that's being done right now. We expect the appraiser to be out here in September. And then after we get their appraisals, they get approved. And unfortunately, when they do appraisals, it's fair market value. And my property is worth more to me than fair market value. I'll just tell you right now, if somebody wanted 5 foot of my front yard, it would be worth more than what fair market value is. So we totally understand that, but we are legally only able to offer fair market value.
Yeah, may I mention one more thing? So I just wanted to mention that anybody receives an offer package from me, it's a negotiation process. Counteroffers are welcome. It's not a take it or leave it offer in any case, in any way, shape, or form.
So there are some negotiations, and like I said, don't be afraid to say, my property is worth more than that, and this is why. So then it goes to Dan's shop. Dan makes these offer letters and mails out letters and starts knocking on doors and talking to people. And then hopefully we come to some kind of resolution and nobody feels too bad. All right, next slide. That's all I got. I can answer questions later. Current schedule. So this graphic shows that we are in the preliminary design phase right now, quarter 2022. So we have I'd say a 75% design that we're reviewing right now. We're making some edits and tweaks to that based on what we're seeing out here today. And then we'll go into, we call it a final design. We do final plans, we do specifications and estimate. And then all along this time, like I said, right now, we're currently working on the right-of-way process. That's ongoing now. We expect the final design of the right-of-way to be done by October of 2023. And then we start building the project the spring of 24, if not hopefully earlier. The uncertainty on this graphic that you're looking at right now is the right-of-way acquisitions or the right-of-way process. It's not a black and white set timeline. Sometimes when we do right-of-way acquisitions or negotiations, some property owners are very receptive and they're like, yeah, I support this project and I understand why it's needed. And yeah, I don't like you taking my front yard a bit, but yeah, I'm okay with it. And then others are like, oh, to go, how do you say it? Pound sand, go pound sand. And you're not getting a teaspoon of my soil. And then them take longer. So it's not a black and white process. That's where the risk and uncertainty is in this schedule. Next slide. Questions?
Councilman Schaefer.
I have a couple very basic right-of-way questions, I guess. It like legally has to be 30 feet. It can't be, or 30 feet on either side of the center line, the right-of-way? Or they be narrowed in cases of confusion?
So there isn't a legal requirement that it be 30 feet. It's just in this particular case, in that location, we were conveyed a 60-foot wide right-of-way by the Forest Service. So that's, in that case, in that location, that's what the conveyance from the Forest Service was 60 feet total. So there is a way to reduce the right-of-way. The way to reduce right-of-way is through the vacation process. So usually that's a private property owner approaching the state and saying, I would like you to vacate the public ownership of this property and grant it to me. And then there is a process associated with that, and I have some paperwork if someone's interested in that.
So, okay. And then also, because potentially the platting or surveying was done incorrectly, can a right-of-way be shifted, but it's because of that specific piece of property that's the conveyance?
Right,
Not
right.
a shifted, okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, and we've looked it over as many ways as we can, and our results show that is the location where the right-of-way is, and at some portion of that, it was then later in 1979 was when the subdivision occurred. That's when that private property was incorrectly or potentially incorrectly platted. And that's what we do. When we came in 2019, we tried to give folks as much information as we had to show why we believe that to be the case. And I have some of that information with me if someone's interested.
And when did the Forest Service conveyance happen then?
1935.
That was in 35. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I actually have a copy of that conveyance with me in case folks wanted it.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilman Carpenter.
Thanks. I guess just to follow up on what Councilmember Schaefer was asking about, the public right-of-way would take precedence?
It's a matter of when things were occurring. So
It's a chronological.
the public conveyance was first, and then the private plat was following in 1979. So we're asserting that we were there first, essentially.
Right, thanks. And then I just was curious about going forward with the design work. I'm assuming there'll be other open house meetings where when you do get close to your final design, you'll be presenting what that looks like, some drawings and.
We don't have any current plans, but if we're invited to come down, we're more than happy to schedule a trip.
Well, or even if you convey the drawings and we can.
Yeah,
get to see
we
it.
do have a website, a project website that has a lot of good information on it. And we should be current. We try to keep it current. But yeah, we're not objected to coming down. One thing to be aware of is we'd probably, if we did come, it would be a smaller group.
Yeah.
Because this project, it's federally funded. It's a federally funded project, which basically means the feds are paying 91 cents on every dollar spent. There is a 9-cent match on this project. And that match is being split. Half of it is being split by the state of Alaska. So 4.5 cents out of every dollar the state of Alaska is ponying up. And then that other 4.5 cents for every dollar spent is being split between the city of Cordova and native village of Eak.
Okay.
So the more money we spend, the more, we call it match, local match.
Required.
Is required. So we're very sensitive to local projects like this to try to efficiently manage budgets and not look like we're just down here like, why is there such a big group of people here and I'm paying for this? So we're sensitive to that. We're not opposed. If you do want us to come down, I'm more than happy to do that. It'd probably just be a small core group.
Yeah, or we can, like you said, we can just.
But yeah,
follow the-
online too is good, and emails, phone calls.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, I think Councilman Guard and then Councilman Sherman.
Just roughly speaking, how many disputed properties do we have with a dispute between right-of-way and property boundaries?
I count 4 total in that subdivision. The 4 that are adjacent to the roadway.
Okay. Thank you.
This is actually for the clerk. Susan, I'm trying to remember when we actually started this project, and I know there was quite a bit of community involvement and discussion. Do you remember the year?
I think the first resolution I could find was 2010, when Linda Kreider worked for NVE and approached the city, and then that's when it began.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Online, Councilman Meyer, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions. I think that was a great presentation. Got all my questions answered, and I'm personally really excited about this project. I think adding pedestrian walkway and widening the road would be a huge benefit. Whenever that baseball field got put in out Whiteshed Road, that was, kind of one of the main concerns was how do kids safely access the baseball field without having to get into a car first. So I'm very much in support of this project and really appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Allison, any comments?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Well, I guess I do have a quick question. Is the project website on the city website, Susan?
No, but I can.
Could we do that?
We can get a link to it up there, sure.
Okay, so the public can look there for that website? All right, thank you.
Does the public get to comment at all tonight?
It's coming up.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll take audience comments regarding agenda items, 3 minutes per speaker. Please come forward and give your name and address. And please speak into the mic so those on the phone can hear you.
Denise Branshaw, 1705 Whiteshed. That's at the corner of Orchid Inlet Drive and Whiteshed Road. It's just past the city shop. It's the road that goes out down to the city shop. I'm going to be the most adversely affected on this project. They are wanting to do both two directions of our property. The north side of the property and the mountain side, which would be the east side of the property. This is across the intersection from the city shop, the big blue building. So on the back of our property is Tom Baylor's property. And between our two properties used to be an easement that he had vacated, so he was able to build his home on it. So I just want that to be on the record. And he also had the road changed. So he had the road changed and he got an easement vacated. Just so that's on the record. I want that to be on the record. So I want to discuss the fact that this is well past the ballpark. This is literally waste of money going that far. It's past the parking, and both of the sidewalks, the one that goes down the north side of our property and the one that goes down the east side of our property will dead end on our property, which is 2 sidewalks to nowhere. We don't even have a domicile on that property, so no one would benefit it, no one would utilize it. And the fact that, okay, so I was told I talked to one of these gentlemen 3 years ago when they had sent us something, and he said, well, that's what they do, they take the whole intersection. But why are they taking it down towards the sewer treatment plant? I don't think anybody's going to be and deading end on it on our side, on my property. Who's going to go down, I don't know how many feet it's going to go down. I'm trying to think how many feet there is. We have there like 100 feet. But if you really want to do something beneficial, I know this is state money and this is a state road, and most of the roads in town are city roads. I mean, they're all city roads. But you have an intersection that has not been constructed as, well, we'll go ahead and cross the intersection. And I want to point that out to you right now. That is at the corner of Lake Avenue and Lefevre. You have an ADA park of Nirvana Park that is built for wheelchairs, strollers, and what have you. But there's no sidewalk to it. You have not created a sidewalk on that corner. And as I used to watch Colton in his wheelchair go down the middle of the road, I thought, well, that's just not right. I see mothers with their strollers. There's no sidewalk there. There's about 300 or 400 feet there that there is no real actual American for Disabilities Act access except for down the middle of the road, just so you know. But they're going to do it here where it's not needed, not necessary, and it's a waste of money. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments. Your 3 minutes
Well,
is up.
I'm not done yet. So I want that to be factored in the cost. I just feel that if you're trying to, benefit the financial feasibility of this community, wasting money on an intersection and sidewalks that'll never be used is not advantageous. It's just not what I want to see the city doing. So it should, I don't know why it's even going past the city shop. I mean, the city shop has an entrance on the other end. I looked there tonight, and there's a clump of trees at the end of the parking lot of the parking for the park, for the ball field. And what are they going to do? They're going to take all that out? That'd be the perfect place to end it right there.
Okay, I'll have to ask you to wrap it up, please.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak to anything on the agenda? Go ahead and come forward and give your name and address.
Casey Kinsman, 211 Council Avenue. I guess I just had questions for the presenters. Is that appropriate here?
Yeah, I think we could go ahead and ask us the questions.
Okay. Is the right-of-way payments, obviously there's going to be settlements at some point, is that included in the $9 million budget?
Well, how does council feel? Would you like to bring the state rep up to answer some questions?
Sure. Is this not appropriate time? And I'm
No,
okay if
that's
it's not.
Would you mind, is there a mic available? Or he can,
Don't mind sharing
Go through the
it.
questions and then.
yeah.
Hi, everybody. This is Russ Johnson again. The $9 million is for construction. That does not include the right-of-way acquisition costs.
Okay, thank you. And then how much farther down White Shed is incorrectly plotted? So we're talking about 0.8 miles. I imagine that's not all that's incorrectly adjusted for right-of-ways. I could be wrong.
This is Dan Peister again. So the only portion of the project corridor that is affected by this incorrect plat is just the first 100 feet of the road.
Okay.
The first 4 properties.
Okay. I guess then my next question was, if there are any other, is there any plan to reconcile those discrepancies? And then is there a maximum amount to the federal match? I know you said it's, 91 cents. We talked about one, part is from the state, part is from our local corridor. Is there a maximum amount to that, not to be exceeded?
For construction, it's been set at 9 million.
Okay.
But it can increase, if.
And that match still applies if it's increased? Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
That match applies also to design costs, right-of-way costs, and utility relocation costs. So it's the whole project costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, is there anybody else in the audience that would? Okay, seeing none. Councilman Guard, you had a comment?
I had one last question for DOT there. You talked about the match being just for construction, then you talked about the match would also be for utilities, relocation. That's exactly what is in the $9 million and exactly what is out of the $9 million.
So 9 million includes construction. It's what's it going to cost to build this project. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there is a budget. I don't even want to say. I'll follow up with you on what the budgets are. We call it design, phase 2. We call it right away would be phase 3. And then we have utilities, phase 7. I don't want to give you a number because I don't.
I'm not asking
Yeah.
for numbers,
Okay.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
for categories. So construction is 9 million, but design is not part of that 9 million.
Correct.
And property acquisitions isn't part of it,
Correct.
right? And relocation of utilities
So
is part of it.
I'll throw out a silly number. Let's say design's going to cost $1, right away is going to cost $1, and utilities is going to cost $1. So now your total project cost is $9,003.
No, I understand the concept, I just
Yep, you're correct.
want to know what we have outside of this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
well, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to chairpersons and representatives and boards and commissions. Is anybody here from CCMCA? The good doctor.
Hi, everyone. I have to, since we have such a big audience, I want to take the opportunity to remind everybody to use CCMC services. Inflation has hit the hospital really hard, like everywhere. Our supplies are really expensive. Bringing in travelers is really expensive. Utility costs are really expensive. So we're struggling, as always. Not like always 3 years ago, but we're really seeing those funds and the operational funds that we were able to previously save are getting spent. And we really need the community to support us. We are in the middle of doing our community health needs assessment. If people see that survey online, please do it. We're using that to guide our services for the next 3 years, but really 5 to 10 years when we're looking at our strategic plan. I brought a couple of things that are really cool that we did with grant money. This is a little kind of business card size. It fits in your pocket, and it has resources for substance abuse and addiction that are available here in Cordova, and it lists all the community resources. I brought a few of these here, and we have them. We're putting them throughout the community. This is a guide. It's the Cordova Community Resource Guide that we put together, and this is more like not just about substance abuse and addiction, but what resources are there for counseling? Where can you take your kids to play? With a library, it's got all of that kind of information. So the hospital put this together with a grant, and look for them out in the community. The other thing that we have going on is August 26th, we are doing a Celebrate Recovery for Substance Abuse and Addiction celebration. It's going to be hopefully at the grassy field, but if it's raining, we'll do it at the school. So, any questions?
Any questions? On the phone, Councilman Meyer, any questions?
Maybe just a comment about the budget that you mentioned. The costs are going up, and we're going to be doing our budget here shortly, so might be a request that would be nice to get sooner rather than later about how you kind of project next year to be. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Allison, any comments or questions?
No, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
These are over by the agenda if anybody wants to check them out.
All right. Thank you. School board. Anybody from school board? Okay, seeing none. Council, the consent calendar is before you. Does anybody wish to remove anything on that?
Okay, on the consent calendar, Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
and Melina Meyer.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, now under consideration of bids and proposals, we have award bid of $86,710 to AK Electric and Control, doing business as Jewel Equipment of Wasilla for a Wacker G70 generator and power transfer switch on page 71.
Did we miss item 10?
What's item? That's
That's
item
what
10.
It's in the
This is
consent
it.
calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right?
No, number 10 is the first bid.
Yeah, it's the, The $87,000 one.
Yes, it's on page 71. There's a council suggested motion. Anybody would like to-
Mr. Vice
Go ahead.
Mayor, I move that we direct the city manager to negotiate a contract with Alaska Electric and Control DBA Joule Equipment of Wasilla to purchase one Wacker G70 generator and automatic power transfer switch for a sum not to exceed $86,710.
Second.
Again, moved and seconded, discussion, Councilwoman Carpenter.
I don't have any major, I mean, I intend to support the motion. Staff has presented us with the background and the research and the procurement process that they went through, so it all looks in order.
Councilwoman Schaefer, your second?
No.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak? On the phone, Councilwoman Meyer, and any comment?
No comment.
Okay, Mayor Allison, any comment?
No comment, thank you.
Okay. Do we do a roll call for this too? Spending money, I guess.
Sure.
Okay.
So on agenda item 10, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Item 11, award contract for $277,920 to Kaufman Engineering, Inc. Well, I better go to page 74. Page 74.
I move to direct city manager to negotiate a contract with Kaufman Engineers Incorporated to provide engineering services for facility condition assessments for a sum not to exceed $277,920.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Speak to your motion, Councilwoman Schaefer.
I guess my one question is, what is the end product, or is there an end product from this contract?
Each of the buildings they'll be assessing will identify specific deficiencies that need attending to in order for them to extend their useful life. So what we get out of that will allow us to have documentation to go after funding to assist with the costs of those things. So there hasn't really been any effort to really look at our buildings. We've been kind of band-aiding these things. So because of the resources that potentially could be available to us, if we go deep and really do the thorough engineering assessment, we'll be more eligible and competitive with grant funding. So that's really what this is all about. And also to give you guys information around, this building only has 2 more months of useful life. It's going to collapse or whatever. I'm exaggerating, of course, but it's useful information, and I think it's really helpful as we look at capital projects that council needs to consider and fund.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
No, it seems like it could be useful when we're trying to make decisions about, do we maintain this, do we put money into maintaining this, or do we scrap it and build new, or there's going to be decisions like that coming up. And then, yes, just having the information to justify applying for grant funds is going to be a big asset, yeah.
Councilwoman Sherman.
I was just going to say the same thing. The first steps we had to do for the Cordova Center were address needs. And so we assessed both the existing library museum at that time and the public safety building, City Hall at that time. And that's the first thing grantors are going to ask for. And you have to defend your needs. And if we have it all in writing, we're that much closer ahead to what is going to be shovel ready. It's a good first step. I'm glad to see it happening.
Okay. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that's been said yet, but I do want to just, I guess, provide a slight word of caution here, is just sometimes these engineer firms come to town and they'll take a look at a building and say, oh, tear it down. That thing's just no good anymore. And it's still got plenty of useful life left. So I am glad to see that we're going with a different firm than I have experience with the experience I just alluded to. But just as we look at these assessments as they come back, I just want to put it out there that we should, take it under advisement, but, if they say a building's ruined, it doesn't necessarily mean it's completely ruined and needs to be torn down. So, thanks.
Okay. Councilman Guard, questions, comments?
No, I can see the value in doing this, and I'll support it, but almost $300,000 to fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I will support this. I see the value in the information.
On the phone, Councilwoman Meyer.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page of what's been said. I see the value in it. It is a big chunk of money, though, so I really hope something comes out of it and we use it. So, thanks.
Okay, Mayor Allison?
No comment for me. Thank you.
Okay. The money that's being spent on this, it's coming from where?
It's coming through the federal,
Oh, that's the timer, sorry.
it's coming through federal funds. We had allocated in the budget, earlier we got $660,000 in change from the feds. It was unexpected, and I presented to you all a list of capital projects that I thought we could knock off the list. One of those projects was funding to do these kinds of assessments. We budgeted, I think in the document I provided, $120,000. And we got 2 bids in, both of which were well over $120,000. So we will, we still have other resources coming from the feds that we can tap to help bridge the difference between this, $290,000, $80,000 project and the $120,000 we had originally spent. So we're looking to borrow, if you will, or rob Peter to pay Paul here a bit, but we'll have to allocate $170,000 more, which is not a problem because we have fund sources, also federal, that are available to pay for that. But with this approval, you are taking the $120,000 that you had already committed and adding to it.
Okay. Okay, well, for my comments will be kind of on page 75, that second paragraph, specifically items 3, 4, 5, and 6. That has to do with the HVAC systems, the plumbing systems, the electrical systems, security, fire suppression, those type of systems. That's really what we would need to help with, in my opinion. We don't have the expertise in town so much. The rest of these things, I think routine maintenance, painting, roofing, that's pretty basic stuff that can be handled here. So I would hope that the emphasis on this engineering firm would really be dig a deep dive into those systems, because that's where we would really need to help. The rest of this stuff we can get figured out, but the expertise we're lacking is in those systems. And a little bit for number 1, the envelope foundation, but we actually have people that can look at those systems too. So I don't know what they're
bringing everybody from structural to electrical engineers. They're bringing their team. They're a full-service engineering team, very well-known in the state, so.
Well, good. I would hope that Melvin's probably going to be showing them a lot of this, and then I don't know what school district that they really emphasize that a deep dive into those systems. Okay, is there any more comments, concerns? Okay, we'll do a roll call again, please.
On the contract on item 11, Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
and Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, item number 12, award a contract for $50,011 to DXP AK Pump and Supply for a Goodwin 6-inch SD 150M dry prime pump, page 78.
Mr. Vice
Yes.
Mayor, I move we direct the city manager to negotiate a contract with DXP Alaska Pump and Supply Incorporated to provide and ship a trailer-mounted Godwin 6-inch SD 150M dry prime Cordova FOB for a sum of not to exceed $50,011.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Like to speak to your motion?
Again, I think this is a procurement process that the staff have gone through, and I support their recommendation.
Okay. Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, I guess I don't have any more comments. I had asked like how much more efficient this, like the extra 2-inch pump would be, and Sam responded. And it wasn't necessarily efficiency, but like how fast it could pump, and it made a huge difference. I guess I don't have the numbers, but I was surprised by how much more volume that it would be able to run. So I'm in support.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? You go to the phone, Councilwoman Meyer, questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Mayor Allison? Okay, we'll do a roll call, please.
Okay, on the contract for item 12, Ken Jones,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
and Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, Mayor Allison, do you have a report for us?
I apologize, everybody. I just haven't had a chance to write anything up this month, but I'll get caught up for next month. But nothing major on the palette at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. City Manager's report?
So in the packet on page 81 is a written report, but I did want to draw your attention to two things. Budget. We are still waiting for the state to finalize its actions. The governor signed its budget, the state's budget, to be effective July 1, and they're still processing paperwork and grant agreements and finalizing numbers. So we are not going to have any budget revisions until those documents have been received, so we know the actual amount. Also, recently, we received notice that the governor signed into effect a jail contract allocation that is more or less more than doubles what we have been receiving to help pay for and acknowledge statewide that the communities are having to pay for state jail services above and beyond what the state is paying. So they're trying to come in line, but again, that number is still a little bit in flux. So hopefully by the first meeting in September, all of those documents will have been received. We'll have final confirmation on the state numbers, which includes school bond debt reimbursement. It includes an additional community revenue sharing amount. So they're fairly significant numbers that will have a rather large impact on those budget revisions. So that will be forthcoming. And other than that, everything else is written in the report on page 81.
Okay, any questions for the manager? On the phone, any questions for the manager? Okay, hearing none. Are we going to get a South Harbor rebuild update?
There's a written report. If there's any specific questions, Sam is, yes, he's here, and she can certainly provide an update. I think, yeah, based on the report, if there's any questions, just we'll bring Sam up and she can answer.
Hey, is there any questions? On the phone, any questions on the South Harbor rebuild update? Okay, financial report.
So financial report in your packet. It is up to date as of June 30th. halfway through the year. There's the fiscal year actuals, the year-to-date actuals, and the budget and the variance. Again, if there's any questions, by all means, let me know, and I'll try to address them.
$250 a day. We can really do all for $19.
All right. So on the financial report on the phone, Councilman Meyer, Mayor Allison. Okay, moving on. The staff quarter reports. Anybody have a comment or question about them?
I do want to make,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, an announcement that our chief of police, who is sitting in the room here, is leaving us in 2 weeks, and it's unlikely you will see his face again in this council chambers as in his role. So I wanted to acknowledge that and have us all give him a due round of applause for his efforts over the last number of years, both as a police officer and as chief. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Any other comments on staff reports? City clerk report.
I think I have it written in there also, and a lot of stuff about the election, which is happening now, the early for the special general election and the general election primary, which are both on August 16th. There's someone upstairs at the Cordova Center from 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, to help early voters, and anyone can call the clerk's office for other questions about voting absentee, other ways that exist. The state's website is a great resource and has answers to a lot of questions also. I can answer any other questions about other things I reported on as well.
Okay, any questions for the clerk? On the phone, any questions for the clerk? Okay, moving on to correspondence. Any comments on correspondence? Okay, those are always appreciated and well read. Okay, ordinance and resolution, number 20, resolution 08-22-23, a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the transfer of $83,135 from the City of Cordova General Fund Reserve to Sheridan Alpine Association for the purchase and installing of a new chairlift cable at Mount Eac Recreation Area. It's on page 137.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 082223.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Councilman Jones, you speak to your motion?
Yeah, we had this, we had a meeting, what was it, a couple months ago, and we discussed this, and that's our equipment up there. They run it for us, but it's, in my opinion, the city's responsibility when they find major mechanical issues such as this, that will keep that lift from operating, that we step in and help cover it. I appreciate their efforts on saving towards this item, and I will be supporting this.
Okay, Councilwoman Sherman.
It's just to echo Councilman Jones's comments, and I really appreciated the Alpine Association has done everything we have asked of them in terms of reporting to us and providing us with information ahead of the needs. And so I'm in support of this too, and I know the project's been going really well.
Okay, Councilor Schaefer, any comments?
I'm also in support, and I think the cable's already in, so.
It is.
Good job, them.
Okay, on the phone, any comments or questions?
Nope, just echo the comments before me. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's just stay with the progress tonight and do a roll call.
Yes, on Resolution 8-22-23. Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we don't have any unfinished business. Move on to new and miscellaneous business. Item 21, council action to protest or waive protest for the transfer of liquor license number 6008. It's on page 141.
I move to waive protest of the transfer of liquor license 6008 from No Road Brewing LLC, DBA No Road Brewing, to No Road Brewing LLC, DBA Copper River Brewing, and from 105 Haida Lane to 507 First Street.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. For the record, Councilman Jones declared conflict of interest and has left the table. Okay, discussion on your motion?
Just a change of name and change of location. I'm excited for their new business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Ditto. No, I don't.
Okay.
Comments.
On the phone, any comment, concern, questions?
Nope, thanks.
Okay. All those in favor of, help me out with the motion here.
Waiving protest.
Yeah. Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
I'm assuming you're in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. All right, the pending agenda, CIP list calendar, page 155. Anybody like to address anything on that?
I would like to request your consideration of adding to the pending agenda city sales tax code revision as a topic.
So that would be item 6 on that?
Okay, is there any objection to that? Okay,
Sounds painful, but we should do it.
is there a time frame that we are trying to get that at? Sometimes these things go there to die for months and months.
We would like to get it going and get it done. As you all know, that this past summer, there was a number of local businesses that had raised concerns about the sales tax code and discrepancies and difficulty in interpretation. So a lot of that is just the language is messy. And so if we get that cleaned up, it will impact everybody in a positive way. So we'll get on it right away.
Okay, so that'll be up to staff's discretion to bring it forward when they,
Okay.
all right. Is there anything else? Okay.
How are we feeling about the second August meeting? I think planning is changed to later in the month, so their things won't make an August 17th meeting. I know that the one thing I had pending for that was Harbor Commission appointments. When do you guys meet? Next week. But then what's your normal, second Wednesday? Okay, so we could have had those appointed in time for that. But how's everybody feel if that's the only item on there? We get all that.
I would prefer that we wait until September after the fishing season is concluded for that.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
How does everyone, okay.
If it happened the first meeting in September, though, we'd have time to make the appointment.
Oh, that is true. When's the 1st September? Do I have that on here?
The first is a Thursday, I think, so.
Oh, it's
Oh, yeah. August
7th.
September 7th would be timely if we appointed new Harbor Commission members so that they could attend the 14th meeting. Okay, so that's a win. And is council okay that if we throw a special, if something comes up, though, we'll give you notice and we'll let you know. Is anybody otherwise dying for the August 17th meeting? Because it's going to be 70 degrees and sunny. Like today.
Hey,
If we
Okay.
don't
not-
meet, then we
so
don't.
So it's
issues
okay?
on the phone, any thoughts on not having the August 17th meeting?
fine with me.
Okay, Mayor Allison? I think we might have lost
He's
Dave.
muted. No, he's just muted.
Okay.
You might not
All right.
know it.
Sounds like the consensus is
Okay,
unless something comes up, we will not have the August 17th meeting.
sounds good.
And so for the public, the next scheduled meeting would be September 7th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If that's it, we'll move on to audience participation. This opportunity to speak to anything on the agenda or anything else related to the city of Cordova.
Hello, Wendy Rainey. I'm here with my hat as the chair for Parks and Rec Commission, and I just want to thank you for approving item 11. The Parks and Rec Commission is a kind of a stepchild commission. Like we meet a lot and we talk about a lot of things, but we don't have a whole lot of power. And one of the things we talk about is the condition of the buildings, and a lot of that is brought to our attention. And I think that in the past, most of our reactions have been reactive. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to get this information, so potentially in the future, our meetings and our decisions can be proactive, and we can take a look at trying to preserve some more of the historical buildings and facilities that we have, instead of just trying to throw money and Band-Aids and keeping things standing. So I do appreciate greatly the work that Duncan has done in getting us on track with this, and I appreciate your vote for this. So thank you very much from the commission.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Yeah, please come forward and give your name and address.
All right, Casey Kinsman, 211 Council Avenue. I'll make this quick. This is about a comment concern about a work stop that was ordered on last Friday, so that would have been July 29th. I have construction, if you've been by there, going on. I was properly permitted to do this said construction. My biggest concern is the time in which the work stop was ordered. It was, if you know anything about construction, it was during the time of footers being poured. So that seemed slightly inappropriate timing to me, but not knowing the entire process, I am not against an inspection process. I'm in favor for it, but I feel like there's an appropriate time for those inspections to occur. And prior to concrete being poured would be, in my opinion, an appropriate time to come and measure easements and setbacks according to easements. So I just wanted that to be stated to the city council, and do with it what you will.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wish to address? Okay, see none, we'll go to council comments. We'll go to the phone first. Whoop, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My name's Oceana Black, and I live at 601 Spruce Street. And I'm not 100% sure this is on the agenda, but I saw on the Facebook that there was a discussion tonight about like the White Shed Road easement, and they were gonna build that road bigger, or I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but I just think that like walkable or bikeable roads here in Cordova are a good thing. I think, I don't know how that would work with like, the road itself is pretty narrow, and like we use the baseball field for soccer and for softball, and I just feel like it's important to have places that we can walk, and with the cost of fuel going up, like we all do it. We drive 15, we drive when we could easily just get on our bikes or walk, but cars are so convenient. But I just find that living in a small community like this, we can be creative with pedestrian issues. And like there's an overpass, like my dad's always talking about this pedestrian he sees, like there's from where the elementary school is, there's that, like if you could, what's the name of the street where the elementary school is? It's Adams Street. So that you could build like a cheaply made, like they have in Bellingham, these pedestrian overpass bridges where kids could walk from the Coast Guard housing up to Adams Street, and they could just bypass all that crazy traffic on Lake Avenue. And I just find that it's really important for kids and moms and dads and everybody to have that time together to be able to walk and ride bikes and recreate, you know. So that was kind of my 2 cents why I wanted to come here and say that. So I appreciate everybody meeting on a beautiful 70-degree day. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you. And to be clear to the audience, it doesn't have to be on the agenda item for this last comment, if anybody's got anything. Okay, seeing none. Move on to council comments. Now I'll go to the phone. Councilman Meyer, any closing comment?
Yeah, I really appreciate this meeting and that presentation about Whiteshed Road. I had been very much looking forward to the progress on that, and I really hope that the private properties and the road part can get sorted out with the best outcome for all, because it is a narrow road, and walkability, like Oceana said, that's a big thing on my list of things that really make a good impact in Cordova, is if we can make our community safer to walk around. I think the happier and that will be, and the people that do walk will have safe access. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Allison, comment? Okay, I think we lost Dave. Oh, Councilman Jones.
Thanks everybody for showing up on such a beautiful day. And I think we did some good work here tonight. I am pretty happy to see the Whiteshed Road project moving forward. That's when my wife and I were looking to buy property, we adamantly were opposed to living on Whiteshed Road because of the road condition. That was like off the table for us. So anything we can do to improve that road, I think, is a really good thing for the community. And yeah, thank you.
Hey, Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, it was great to have so many people from the public here tonight, even on such a nice day. And I appreciated the presentation as well. And also all the staff reports in the packet tonight. Thanks for all the hard work, everyone.
Councilman Guard.
Echo all the comments before me.
There you go. Councilman Carpenter.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks to DOT for making the trip. It's great to have faces to go with the names of people who are working on the project. And it was really helpful. Good presentation. I was going to say, bear with me. I know this was talked about at the meeting that I missed, but I do want to just say for people who are listening in, following along online, maybe to please remember to put trash out the morning of pickup and help reduce bear attractants. I just thought that message bears repeating. Sorry, can't, it just goes with the goes with the sentence. And I also wanted to say that just I've been thinking about the harbor rebuild project as we move forward. I hope that we can be working on putting best harbor management practices into place as we go forward, because I know, abandoned and derelict vessels, that problem is not going away. And I think in most harbors, certainly in the lower 48, I would guess, the practice is to make sure that boats have insurance and make sure that that insurance is in place. And I think that if we're going to invest $5 million of our own money, as well as a lot of public money, it would be great to make sure that those practices are in place going forward with our brand new, beautiful harbor. So, thank you.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Thank you. I just want a couple of things. Thanks to Chief Taylor, and I wish you and your family well. We'll miss you. Dr. Saunders mentioned the CCMC survey. It's easy to do. If you haven't done it, it just takes a few minutes, and it's going to give the hospital some great feeling for what the community needs. And I was just happy about that pump that we approved, because it's not only going to make the system more efficient, but it's kind of mean less call outs at 2 a.m. and less manpower. And I know how long those guys have had to work on that. So that's a good investment. That's all.
Hey, thank you. I would echo everybody's comment, and I would, there's more federal funding coming out, and I kind of bought this once before, and I still want to champion it. I think a really good addition to this community would be a water line out to the 6 Mile residencies. They're woefully underserved. That water out there is probably not the best thing to be drinking and needs to be filtered so much. It would seem like we could perhaps get some grants to do that, to safe water drinking somehow. It'll take a couple more council people to champion that, but I think it's a worthwhile thing. If nothing else, if we could get a clean water station out there where people could actually fill up, get clean drinking water right there at 6 Mile rather than having to traverse all the way to town. A side benefit of that would be too is Peterson Welding, who they're doing a massive expansion. They want to put in a water jet system, which would help speed up, and they're fabricating and make things possible, but they can't do it without a water line. So those are a couple of things that I'd like to see in the future. Maybe council people think about that. I guess with that, one more motion.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we move second. Without objection, we are adjourned.
Sorry, I never gave you a gavel.
Pardon me?